Hello everyone. Okay, today we're going to be reading one of my favorite books. This book is so funny. I read this to my kids in the beginning of the year, I think. It's called Meet the Dullards. Very humorous book. So this book is called Meet the Dullards, Extra Boring Edition. It is by Sarah Pennypacker and Daniel Salmieri. I think that's how you say his name. Okay. Meet the Dullards. One day, Mr. and Mrs. Dullard received quite a nasty surprise. They're reading. The Dullards collected the books and handed their children some nice blank paper to read instead. Then, they left the room to discuss the problem in private. This was not the first time their children had given them a shock. Last week, they had asked to go to school, and just the day before, Mr. Dullard had caught them trying to play outside. Seems like some pretty normal things. Mrs. Dullard shook her head sadly. "Where did we go wrong?" Now, Mr. Dullard comforted his wife. "It can't be our fault. We're perfectly dull." "Perhaps it's this place," he said. "Last fall, remember some leaves turned color? And now, this!" He pointed to an upsetting commotion in the driveway. Little snail. "There's never a dull moment." "You may be right. It's like a circus around here," Mrs. Dullard agreed. "This is no place to raise Blanda, Borley, and Little Dud." So the Dullards packed up their 3 dull children and all their dull things and moved. Just as they brought the last box into their new home, a lady came to the door. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said. "I baked you an applesauce cake." "Please don't use exclamation marks in front of our children," said Mrs. Dullard. "Smooth or chunky applesauce?" asked Mr. Dullard. "Chunks are so unpredictable, so nerve-wracking." "I'm sorry," said the neighbor lady. "It was chunky." "Goodbye," said the Dullards, shutting the door. "Well, I never," they heard the neighbor lady muttering as she carried her cake away. "Well, we never either," said Mr. Dullard. "That's how we keep our family so dull." "You children need to calm down after all that excitement," said Mrs. Dullard. "Go watch the television." I wonder what's going to be on TV. Oh, nothing. Nothing is on TV, and the TV is unplugged. So they're looking out the window instead. Mr. and Mrs. Dullard finished unpacking all their dull things. "Ah, this place feels more boring already," said Mr. Dullard. But then, they look mortified. She passes out. Husband catches her. His glasses fly off. Some pretty bright wallpaper. On the way to the paint store, the Dullards spotted an ice cream stand. Mr. Dullard ordered their usual. 5 vanilla cones, please. Hold the cones and extract the vanilla. "But all that would be left is plain ice cream," the clerk said. "Yes, that's correct," said Mr. Dullard. There's 90,000 flavors, and they asked for plain ice cream. At the paint store, Mr. Dullard suggested a medium gray. "Too risky," Mrs. Dullard decided. "Gray is the color of highways, and highways could make the children think about going somewhere." "How about beige?" "Out of the question," said her husband. "Beige reminds me of clay. The children might think of that, and," he put his hand to his heart, "want to make something." In the end, they told the clerk to mix the gray paint and the beige paint together. And the new color was indeed perfectly dull, like oatmeal left in the pot. finished painting the room, Mr. and Mrs. Dullard tried not to look at the walls. But it was no use. They were completely mesmerized. All day long, the Dullards watched the paint dry. Do you think it would be fun to watch paint dry? Nope. Uh-oh, what are the kids doing? They're mesmerized by this paint. Finally, Mr. Dullard tore his gaze away. "I think," he began. Mrs. Dullard shook her head. "No thinking," she reminded her husband. "It sets a bad example for the children." And speaking of the children, where are they? Oh, they see the open window. Oh my goodness. It's beautiful colored sunset in the background. The baby is on the clothesline. This little boy is teaching the dog to balance on a ball, and this girl's juggling. Uh-oh. "I can't imagine what came over them," Mr. Dullard said as they herded the children safely back inside. "Perhaps it's this new home. It's terribly exciting." "You may be right. It's like a circus around here," Mrs. Dullard agreed. "This is no place to raise Blanda, Borley, and Little Dud." So the Dullards packed up their 3 dull children and all their dull things and moved back. Look at the faces of those kids. Coming to town tonight. Circus. That night, Mr. and Mrs. Dullard fell asleep right away, secure in the knowledge that their children were perfect bores. They're sleeping without any blankets, no pillows. And look at where their kids are going. To the circus! Here we go. Alright, let me know if you liked that story as much as I do. And the assignment that I had given my kids when we read this book was, what do you think happened when the parents woke up? Were the kids still at the circus? Do you think the kids ever came back? Did the parents find them in their rooms asleep when they came back from the circus? Did the parents ever find out about the circus? So think about that. This is an example. One of my kids, I don't have a name on this one, had drawn what they thought that they were doing at the circus, which is really funny. Alright, and that is it for today. I will see you guys later. Bye!